actually, he, going from Reno through Lake Tahoe, he had this idea that he was supposed to stay in Lake Tahoe, and he did. He got got a job at a casino there. But the point was really for him to get to San Francisco, and so I think he ended up spending several months in Lake Tahoe, but he took a trip to San Francisco along the way, and then he realized at school, because he remembered Ken Ring had mentioned the school to him, they might want to check out the California Institute of Asian Studies. And so I think the very first trip to San Francisco convinced him. I think he saw the place and just knew I'm supposed to enroll in this graduate school. Well, in order to do that, of course, he had to finish his studies at University of Connecticut, get his degree, undergraduate degree, so he'd go to apply to a graduate school. So just like that, he sort of turned around and he stayed, I think he stayed the full summer in Lake Tahoe. Just, I think, decided, well, I'll just have a little vacation before I continue on with my journey. So he ended up back, well, actually not until to rematriculate, took him a little process, but he was back in January of 1975 to finish his last semester at University of Connecticut. All in order to get out to California. And remember, I think to even manage that, he had to sell his car and get a little bit of money together to enroll in the school, got some student loans or whatever. But anyway, the whole point is September 1975, Louis, renting an apartment with two other students from the university, or who were going to be going to the Institute, Sheldon and Will, and enrolled in classes to begin that September 1975. And it was interesting that one of the classes he had was in Tibetan Buddhism, taught by this woman, Dr. Rina Sarkar. And the whole experience there at first was pretty overwhelming for Louis, because a lot of the students were like really into Buddhism and they wore the robes and all that. And Louis thought, oh, he just was not at all taken up with these affectations. And he had a course in Japanese arts and literature and a couple of other courses. I forget exactly the first semester, but the important one was with Reno. And Louis learned from some of the students that Rena, not only being a professor, but she was also like a spiritual healer, and a lot of people were sort of like excited to be like her disciple or something like that, like they were calling her a saint. And Louis didn't think much about that at all. In fact, he found her quite difficult to understand. She was from Burma, had a very thick accent, and he sat in the back of the little classroom listening to her talk about Buddhism, and found it relatively boring. But as things would be, one day after, go back a couple of days. One morning in his apartment, Louis wakes up, or just before waking up. You sort of wake up, he's waking up, but he's still like laying in bed. And he has this really strong vision where he sees the word oasis. He sees himself as some kind of a guru, spiritual teacher. He sees himself in this light-filled room with all of these smiling faces. It's a lovely vision, and vision, everything's sort of encaptured in a moment. it's not like a dream, it's just like a vision. He just sees his future self. And I remember that he tells one of his two roommates about it. He had a closer relationship with Will, but he chose to tell Sheldon first about it. And Sheldon got all excited because Sheldon was all keen on someday living in an intentional community. He was really interested in alternative energy and all these other things. So he was really excited about, oh, yeah, we could have an ashram someday. You be the guru and I'll take care of all the technical details. And I'm like, okay, sounds good to me. And, you know, I just kind of laughed like, you know, this is someplace in the far off future. So the next time Louis in class with Rena, after the class, she stops him and says, you must come to see me in private. And Louis is like, is she gonna scold me for falling asleep in the back of her classroom? Probably the class was on a Thursday. I think it was like Saturday morning. Louis goes to her room. She's just living in a small room in the same building where the classes exist. It's a small school, not too many students or classes or teachers. Anyway, Rena lives there in this small room. So Louis goes to her room that morning, Saturday morning, knocks on her door, and she opens the door and she puts her fingers upon his third eye, forehead right here. And Louis experiences this bolt of cosmic energy that he's never seen or experienced anything like that. His knees go out from underneath him. He's on the floor crying like a baby. Rena's holding him, rocking him. Okay, told you this is rebirthing. He's being rebirthed. Ken gave the first directive. Of course, you know, I'm manipulating this whole thing. So now I'm watching here as Karina is like, she's his true mother. Okay, she's his spiritual mother. Beautiful, tiny little woman from Burma. And actually, I said yesterday, I wasn't sure if she's still on the planet. I double checked, and yeah, she's still around, doing well. Yeah, because it was really interesting because one of the things she said to him was, and remember, Rena told you so. It was so cute. She was so perfect in her role. But anyway, she tells Louis about the vision that he had, this oasis. She said it's all going to come true. It's your destiny. And she said, your destiny is to be a great spiritual teacher. And told him a few details. She did some palm reading. Details were not important. Although she did say you're never going to have to worry about money, which is kind of interesting. You know, Louis never really had any money, but I guess he never worried much about it. Oh, and she had mentioned this thing, which I'm not even sure exactly what it means, but she said, you have the brow of David. So she said she could see in Louis's brow, she could see his destiny. She could see his, and it's interesting. I'll share some other little gems from his journey, because there were so many times when individuals, for whatever reason, they could pick up on this vibe about what Louis was destined to be. And again, it's fun because it's me, you know, I'm not an entity, but it's this higher self, right? It's this higher self that you all have. This is what's so important, that you understand that you are, you know, you have a body and you develop this person, okay? And there is this higher self that is a significant part of what you are. You know, the body and the person truly are simply your communication device. Now, you might think it's what you are. You might think, you know, you're defined by your body, or you might think that you're defined by your mental, emotional person, but I can guarantee you that's not true. And any of your frustration, any of your depression, any of your anxiety, any discomfort that you feel is always your inability to fully accept this higher self. So again, Louis getting this information about his higher self, Sun King, me, or this, this thing that's speaking. Louis gets some direct access to this energetic reality. And yet it's going to take him several decades to fully accept it. Okay? Very, very significant. When Louis leaves the meeting with Rena, you know, more or less in a daze, like, what? Are you kidding me? And he had this thought, which, again, you could say I planted in his brain, but the thought was his egoic, it's clear indication of his egoic dilemma. Okay, because it's a dilemma. Because the ego can't imagine being so holy, being so good. That would be the ego's interpretation of a great spiritual teacher. It'd be a holy person. Somebody really, somebody really special, someone really great. The person. Well, that's the mistake, and that's the mistake that everybody makes. That's what causes all the problems. So the thought that I planted in Louis' brain, which was a very important thought, was, well, if someday I'm going to be so very good, first I need to be so very bad. And it was a really happy thought because Louis felt comfortable with the idea of being bad. It's like, it's easy. So here's the inertia that says, okay, you're going to go into the dark side first, which again, this is the Luciferic principle. It's really, really, really important that you understand the Luciferic principle.